All right. So here with Connor White, we're going to talk about the assessment process here at Driveline. Yeah, let's get into it, man. So yeah, first, mainly want to get into like exactly what we get out of the assessment process, how we use that information, why it's valuable, things like that. So to start on the performance side, what do we got?
Yeah, let's just roll through the test day. So athletes walk in the door. First thing they're doing is the table test with HP. We're taking range of motion at a couple key joints, focusing on the hips and T-spine. So we used to do full spectrum all across the board, like a long time ago when we would do pretty much every joint.
Hips, ankles, shoulders.
Yeah, but then
okay.
when we compared those to like what we were actually seeing in the mocap for throwing and swinging, it was just like no signal to anything. With the
In
hips
terms of
and the
like
T-spine.
the passive versus active range of motion,
Yeah.
what's actually happening.
Yeah, like the transfer, because I think everything in the swing or the throw is so integrated. It's just a totally different beast than what you can
Right.
crank your hip to on a table. So hips and T-spine, those are still important. Those are big ones. And then we do the warm up, go through dynamic warm up, and then they go to the arm care screening. So we're getting shoulder rotational strength, internal and external, scaption strength, like pushing back overhead, and grip strength.
Yeah, so the arm care stuff kind of bridges the gap between the like what we used to do with the passive range of motion. It's just like a better variation of similar information we're getting from that, right?
Yeah, so we're still getting like some of the specific joint stuff, but as coaches, kind of a good one-stop shop in terms of the amount of data we're getting for a low like time, because we're getting the strengths as well, and then also layers right in with the force plates and where we're eventually going to get to.
Nice.
So after the arm care stuff, that's when they'll go to their specific prep. So going to the cage or going to throw on the plyo wall, to get loose, get warm for the mocap. So from there, what does it look like for a guy once he's through the warm up, the arm care, the general HP stuff?
Yeah, so after the general warm up, we're going to start getting into the hitting specific stuff. It's obviously going to be a little bit different for pitching. But on the hitting side, you're going to come in, you go through like a warm-up group, getting a little bit of NC work if you want to do that, but mainly getting some front toss, some time off the machine to get hot for the mocap, right? So like in there, you're going to get an idea of the what and why behind all the different training bats we use, how to use them, the purpose, what specific things we use them to focus on with the swing specifically. You're also going to get a feel for like how to use hit tracks data, how to use blast data, anything that's tracking with your bat path, how your bats move through space. That's more of like the intro, get warmed up, get an idea of how to use this information, and then you go into the mocap lab. We don't do markered anymore, so you don't have to get completely naked to go through the assessment process. Ideally, like shirts off is still going to give us the best quality of data, but don't necessarily have to do so. Tight-fitting clothing works really well in there as well. So like the assessment process on the hitting side at least is way simpler now that the markered process doesn't happen anymore. So you get in the cage, it happens pretty quickly. You can basically just jump in, take a couple rounds off the machine to get hot, and then we're collecting all your data in the lab. So the things we're getting in the lab in the actual hitting assessment piece, we're going to get your force plate data, so exactly how you're producing force, how you're using the ground throughout the entire arc of the swing, all of your body data throughout the entire swing, and full signal bat path data throughout the entire swing. With that, we're also collecting, like we're getting markered bat data. That's how we're getting the full signal. We're also getting your blast data in the lab, and we're getting your hit tracks data in the lab. So you have a really good look in that specific time, like a snapshot of who you are. Use that information to get an idea of like who you are, why. We use that to kind of drive the decision making in our programming and like how to improve the issues we're seeing. So like collecting the bat ball data, the bat path data, the body data gives you a really high level overview understanding of what's going on and why. Real simple way to look at it is like you're taking your bat ball data. Obviously like ball flight is the output that matters the most, right? It's like whether good or bad, you can work backwards from that, get an idea of like how your bat's moving through the swing. It's going to give you a really good idea of like why you're hitting the ball the way you are. Keep working back from that idea of how your body's working throughout the swing, through different phases, load phase, stride phase, swing phase, different body positions, looking at everything from the top down. And then getting into the force plate data, get an idea of why your body's moving the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that perspective, it's almost like a pyramid, right? Coming up to the top with like what actually matters is what happens when at and after contact.
Right.
But where the lab helps us explain
Yep.
what's going into that on a larger sample than just like one swing. And I think from there, with the next steps being the HP testing, it's the next layer down, right? Because that's finding out like what does your body do and what can your body do in the like specific environment, like within the swing. And then the next step is what can your body do in general. So moving over into the HP test, we start out.
An easy way to look at it is like in the hitting side in the lab, you're getting an idea of like the skill, like the technical abilities, the skill, what's going on, why. And on the high performance side, it's more of just like the physical.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. We end up blending those two different things together to get an idea of like who you are, why, where your highest priorities need to be, and like how we're going to attack those things, and like blend and progress that programming over time.
Right. And some of the, even like within those categories, there's like kind of how you walk through it, there's a spectrum, right? Where it's like something like swing decisions or bat to ball, super, super fine technical skill. And then like maybe the in-ground force plates, how you're producing force within the swing is still specific. Like that's still related to your technique, but it's more general than your bat to ball.
Yeah, correct.
And then on the HP side, something that would be more specific would be like the arm care, right? Where we're taking general force production, but it's still at a more specific individualized joint. And then for the general testing on the force plates, we do 3 different jump tests, starting with the CMJ, which is basically just vertical jump with your hands on hips. All of our jump tests are done with hands on hips. That just like takes the upper body and the extra momentum out of the equation, because different athletes are going to be able to use that extra momentum differently. And the output that we care about isn't like jump height. Like we're not trying to see how high can you jump for the sake of jumping, right? There's not too much jumping down on a baseball field. We're looking at the lower body force production. How much force can you produce? How fast can you do it? How balanced are you between the two legs? Because those are the things that are going to transfer for us. So the CMJ, counter movement jump up first. Then we do a squat jump. Squat jump, very similar to CMJ, except we're going to pause for 3 seconds at the bottom. What that does is kills all your momentum, no load. It's just the concentric. So having those two together, we get your force production with momentum, like with that elastic, that snap down basically in the CMJ, and then without it. And the difference between those two jumps can help tell us, all right, how much are you actually getting out of that load?
Yeah.
Because that's going to help clue us into, like you called it earlier, like who you are. And so like defining who you are on the general side is really important too. Is this an elastic guy? Is this a guy who's more like force driven? Is this a guy who's going to be more elastic, more muscular driven? How are we going to profile this guy physically? So having those two jumps together, super useful in tandem. Third jump, repeated hop test, 10 pogo hops in a row. So trying to get off the ground as quick as you can, jump as high as you can. This is going to keep going down that line of not just how high you can jump, but under different constraints. So now it's got the time constraint. You're having to rebound off the ground, so it's how high can you jump, how fast. So this one's going to be tied into more properties like sprint speed, where they're going to be more reactive. Last test on the force plates is a plyometric push-up. This is a new one we added last year. It's basically just a CMJ for the upper body. So they're going to start steady, load up, and explode off the ground with the upper body. So getting elastic force production with the upper body. We don't do a non-counter movement like a squat jump version for the upper body, just because the force production threshold there would just be too low for most of our athletes. And so just having the CMJ equivalent basically gives us all the data we need from the upper body.
Nice.
Next test is the isometric mid-thigh pull. This is our test of max strength. You're locked in the rack. We set knee and hip angles, so bar height is standardized for each guy. So it doesn't matter if you have super long levers, super short levers, really long arms, whatever the frame, you're pulling from the exact same amount of leverage as everybody else. This is going to be useful for younger guys who are growing, so that way they're still getting compared in the same position each time, and also comparing from like one athlete to another. That way, because a 6'6" guy and a 5'9" guy, if we have them deadlifting or squatting, their different levers are going to provide different advantages or disadvantages. Standardizing takes all that out of it. So a mid-thigh pull, you're locked in the rack, feels like a top of a deadlift, top of an RDL, second pull on a clean. From there, a few warm-up reps, and then just max force production. How much force can you possibly put into the ground? So at this point in the testing, we have how much force can you produce very quickly from the jumps, and we have how much force can you produce total. And having those two together tells us, does this guy need to get stronger in order to build up what's going to transfer the most? Because at the end of the day, like, what you can do fast transfers to the field, because everything's going to actually happen fast. But you can't produce a lot of force fast unless you can produce a lot of force. So step one, does this guy produce enough force, the absolute strength? And then step two is, can he do it quickly? So already you can see pretty clearly like how that's going to drive programming decisions. But I think that the coolest and most valuable thing that we get out of that is going to be the expected bat speed, or expected velo, which is taking all of our force plate profile and putting it to one number that says, if we knew nothing about you as a hitter, this is how fast we would think you would swing the bat just as an athlete. And having that, we mentioned the physical and the technical earlier, that puts like a label on the physical, because we have the technical, we know how fast you actually swing the bat, we know how good you are at translating that to actual rotation, but it's like how much of that is just the gas in the tank. And I think having those two together is super, super valuable, because you can see the guy that outswings his expected, that's going to be a guy that's good at rotating, a guy that's good at transferring his general properties into specific.
Yeah, you're going to see those types of guys who have like the really swing, like quote unquote, clean mechanics, right? Like they move really efficiently, use the ground well, rotate well, sequence really well. Bat path ends up being pretty clean there. Like those are the types of guys that tend to like outperform the expected, because they are more skilled, right? Like technically more efficient and that side of things. And with those guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, like generally with that type of profile we see, that person can get a ton of value out of really prioritizing things in the weight room. Whether it's just like general strength or getting more powerful, it's like you already have the technical ability. You can improve on the physical side. Like it's only going to make the tech people that much better.
Absolutely. I think if you think of them like on a graph, like your expected versus your actual, a lot of guys would see like, oh, I'm 3 miles an hour above, right? Like I'm highly skilled. That doesn't mean like, oh, this number doesn't matter for me. It means that if you can go, say you're at 68 expected, 71 actual, getting to 70 expected isn't about like trying to have them balanced. Like having enough like physical base is still going to be important for durability and having a body that can tolerate the outputs that you're getting, for sure. That's certainly part of it. But what we see is that both climb, because that high skill, that high transfer for them doesn't go away. So if they're getting 10% more, 5% more out of their body than you'd expect, that tends to hold pretty well as long as the training is scaled, right? If the training was just built around, all right, maximize jump height, maximize strength straight up and down, what the tests are testing, you'd probably see more of that shifting just right? And just like balancing the two out. But with the training center, they're still doing bat speed work, they're still hitting in the cages, they're rotating, they're sprinting, they're jumping, working through multiple planes in order to build up that expected number. And that's where we see that similar like ratio of the two. I think it's probably the most useful way to think about it. Climb together.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like just because your actual is better than your expected doesn't necessarily mean you're in a good place with either number. Right? Like obviously on either side of the spectrum, like we're trying to raise those numbers over time. And like you alluded to it at least a little bit there, like those aren't the outputs we're only solely focused on in the assessment and like training process. If it was, like we do nothing but try to get guys to jump high and swing the bat really fast. Like everything we're doing is trying to map to the field so that you are more productive on the field, right? Like we know that bat speed is obviously important, but like the main thing here is we use those two different things to kind of anchor at the beginning to drive the decision-making process to figure out like, okay, like where do we need to start with the programming? Like helps us type athletes to figure out, okay, this guy needs to prioritize the weight room a little bit more. Context dependent, like obviously it's different based off time of year, their age, playing level, injury history, what happened their previous season, things like that. But we're using those 2 points as a starting point to figure out like what needs to be the priority at the beginning and how we're going to go about doing it. And that's one of the things I love about the HP assessment and the different types of jumps. You talked about counter movement jump versus the squat jump. You get an idea of like the elastic ability, the eccentric versus the concentric. That gives us a lot of signal for the swing side of things, right? Like A lot of times you'll see hitters that are like really, really concentrically strong. Maybe they have like some asymmetries or some like movement issues. Maybe they're not as elastic as they could be. You'll see that guy who maybe produces pretty good bat speed because they're strong, but the swing efficiency might not be good for those same reasons. Like a lot of times you see the very strong concentric hitters tend to be like very upper body dominant because they can produce a lot of force that way. That just because you're moving the bat fast, you're able to hit the ball hard there, it doesn't necessarily mean your bat path is in a good place. Doesn't necessarily mean your contact quality is going to be in a good place. So with that type of person, maybe the focus is going to be more on like, all right, we have to get you to move more efficiently, get more out of like the elastic side of things in the swing, right? Like the raw power is there, the engine is there, but mechanically things aren't in a good place. So like you need to clean up your swing, clean up your sequencing, maybe like the timing of your hip shoulder separation because you aren't very elastic. There's like very low hanging fruit with like how you create stretch throughout the swing. That's going to play a big role in your posture. It's going to play a big role in your bat path. We mentioned having the full signal bat path data, and it's like love using blast motion sensors, but like they have limitations. Like you're only going to get metrics at certain points in time. Like everything is based off of like first move when your hands get started or at contact, right? And there's a lot of value there. But knowing exactly how the barrel is moving throughout the entire arc of the swing, it's so incredibly valuable. And as far as I know, that information doesn't exist anywhere other than Driveline, right? Like you could have great bat speed, you could have a good attack angle at contact, but like how you're getting to that point in time plays a big role in your adjustability, your contact quality, and like your overall bat ball profile. So again, started rambling there, but like using all this information to kind of drive the decision-making process and like how we're going to iterate on things over time.
Well, and that's all that information. I think like one, it matters no matter where you're at. Like if you're raking right now, great time to get a snapshot of where your swing's at.
That's the best, and that's
if you're
that's so overlooked.
Struggling
same
right
thing
now,
with video, right? Like
right.
Guys want video when they're struggling. A lot of times, guys don't want it when they're in a good place. They don't even think about wanting to have it. But like having in-depth assessment data when you're in a good place, coming off of an amazing college, high school season. Obviously, we're going into the summer right now. It's like that time of year. It's like if you had a great season, like that is the perfect time to get an assessment. You're obviously going to find ways to improve. Like the information is so in-depth, we're always going to be able to find something for somebody to work on. Like Travis Mazzano was the first round or number one pick in the draft last year. Like after a couple years of training, like guy coming in during the season and trying to find like every little thing he can to improve, like so much value in that. But you come off of a good year, it's a great time to get an assessment so you know exactly where you're standing when you're in a good place, so you have something to reference when you're inevitably going to struggle again. Like it's baseball, you're definitely going to struggle again, probably sooner than later, especially as you move up in levels. So having that reference point, what you're doing, what you look like, how your body's moving when you're in a good place is so incredibly important.
And it's so much more actionable when you have all those layers of data than like, I got to get back to where I was in 22. It's like, oh, where were you? Like, oh, I think I was like starting my hands a little bit more. And it's like,
I felt this. I'm trying to get back to that feel. I'm trying to make the video look like this.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't actually know how the body is moving through different points in time. Like the finer measurements, like you might have like 5 to 6 degrees difference in like pelvis rotation at certain points in time. Like your posture might be slightly off, and that's the thing that's pulling your barrel off plane just enough to where your bat ball quality isn't where it should be or where it was in the past when you were at your best.
Or even maybe you're limited because for a guy coming out of college, who you are at 21, 22, 23, your body's different than it was when you're looking back 2-3 years ago. Maybe your hips can't get to that spot. Maybe you didn't train enough in season and your body isn't capable of getting to those positions anymore, whether that's like a strength, power, or range of motion thing. If all you have is an old video of you swinging, and oh man, I just got to get back to that. It's just such like an incomplete profile, right?
And that's
it doesn't really even do anything.
It's one of the dangers with video too. It's like, man, like I want to get to this position, and I want to get here. I want it to look like this, and like you don't actually know what's changed. Why you're struggling to get back to that point. It's really difficult to have that without in-depth biomechanics data.
Because even if you do know even if you're right and you're seeing perfectly in the video, you have no idea why.
Yeah, you don't know why it's happening, and you don't know how to fix it, right? Because like oftentimes somebody will come in after struggling for a while and be like, I'm trying to get back to this point. And like you said, it's like, okay, like what was going on then? You're like, I don't know. Like I don't have that information, I don't have that data. So it's just guessing, right? It's like having the in-depth assessment data is going to limit the guessing. You're going to focus on the right things faster, and you're going to be able to make changes faster and be confident that they're the things that are actually going to map to the field and are actually going to move the needle for your performance.
You mentioned one thing in there of and you won't know how to fix it, that I think is a really valuable point of our assessment process too, is that beyond just the like analysis, the numbers, the data, all of that is the experience, both from like a model standpoint. Like our model is educated by so much data, like so many athletes at all levels, and even at like an individual level, so many athletes like almost just like you, like whether that's level of play, physical profile, like elastic versus more of a concentric driven guy, like the athlete type buckets with a data set this big are pretty expansive. So from like a data modeling standpoint, we have a good idea of what works. And then also our coaches have been around for a lot of that model's application, development, using that information, whether it was here or before they got here. They've worked with a lot of athletes too. And so the application of those models, the application of that data it's like a multiplier. Like it goes exponentially beyond just what the data itself gives you, because the data is super, super valuable. But if you just get handed a report and see you later, like just looking at a biomechanics report is going to be so overwhelming. Even for somebody who maybe has been a hitting coach for a long time. Like there's so much in there. But the experts that are interpreting that, like it's like you go take your car in to get some diagnostics. Like you could plug in a little sensor and it'll tell you why the check engine light's on. It's not going to tell you what to do about that. You're going to have to find somebody who knows what to do about that. And I think that's the second part of why the assessment is so valuable here, is because that data set that it refers to, both like tangibly in like the models and the data, and then also like the intangible side, like the coaching application, that people using that data.
Yeah, that was really well said. I love the mechanic analogy there. But yeah, that's something too, like to bring it back to the video thing. And like this is something we get from high level hitters all the time that come in here and like go through the in-depth assessment. They're like, holy shit, this is incredible. It's amazing information. And it's like, all right, like did any of this stuff surprise you? Like, is this new information? And a lot of times it's like, well, no, like I've heard pretty similar things before, just haven't ever had a clue how to fix it, right? That's where you bring in like the experts that have used this information, who have applied it, who have actually gotten results using it. Like that's where the most value comes from. It's not just the assessment, it's the people that are using that data to actually get you better. That's another thing. Like I was bringing back the video thing. It's like you're talking about like the different buckets people could fall into, like in terms of swing flaws, right? Like there's a lot of different potential issues, but like the general problems are pretty similar across the board. Like you're pushy, you have trouble with posture, you have certain bat path issues, maybe you just don't move the bat fast enough, your batted ball profile sucks. Like there's a lot of little things like that, but inside of each of those buckets, like there might be 5, 6, 7 different reasons why someone could be pushy and what exactly is causing it. So like the dangers of using video, it's for the most part, it's pretty easy to see what's going wrong, but you don't always know why. Most of the time you don't, and you're just guessing. Good coaches are going to find a way to help you get better. But like having the in-depth data that tells you exactly what is going on that's causing these problems, that's the way you can fix these things quickly.
That's gas. I think the biggest thing from there is, beyond just the initial assessment, is the value of the retest.
Yeah.
Because I think that the initial assessment gives you so much information, but then the application is so much more valuable if you're actually having a way to check your work, basically, right? Like because we're narrowing in that confidence interval, we're taking out guesswork, but at the end of the day, like program execution, all the other variables that can come up in a training program, the time, everything involved, being able to honestly evaluate how well is this working. And not just where was I a month or 2 months or 3 months ago, but where am I now compared to that? Because when somebody comes in, okay, we know where they are now, and we have their goal. We know where they want to get, whether that's going from Travis, I'm going to be an early draft pick, to 101, or you're 15 and you want to play college baseball. We know where you are now. We know where we need to be, and we have a great idea of the steps in between, but taking regular snapshots, taking regular assessments, the retest value of that test retest loop is so huge because you're checking your work and you're recalibrating, because you are hopefully making significant changes, and that who you are is slowly changing. So you might need program adjustments. It might be just everything's going great, we're going to stay on this track. But the difference between that over even an off season, 3-4 months, can be significant if there's no checkpoints in between. Because the off season is so short that if you spend 4 to 6 weeks, you think that it's training what you think it's training, and you didn't actually make that progress that you thought you were making in 4 to 6 weeks, you just lost like a third of your off season.
It's a lot of time.
And
you can make big changes in that time frame.
Huge, especially with
it's hard to do if you don't actually have a plan. You don't know what the cause of your problems are. You don't directly know how to fix them. Like, you just go in circles for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden your off season is over and you're in the exact same place.
Because you
maybe
lost,
even more confused.
You lost that progress, but you also lost that progress to compound off of.
Mm-hmm.
And for those guys, the reason that sucks so bad is because they didn't have any time to begin with. So you lost what little time you did have. And for a younger athlete, not getting those regular checkpoints, if your trajectory's off by a little bit over the course of 4 years of high school, it's a massive change in result. So getting those regular like retests or calibrations, whatever you want to however you want to think of it, I think is as valuable, if not more, than the baseline to begin with.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier, like the 15-year-old kid, like, you know who you are, you know what your goals are, and like obviously you want to be able to like retest and check things over time to track your progress. But it's like, not only do we know where you are as an individual at that point in time, we know where you stack up because we have a ton of data, like you mentioned earlier. Like, our data set, this doesn't exist anywhere else. Like, nobody has this comprehensive information that we do, right? It's like, we know exactly where you are as an individual. We know where you stack up against your peers around the same level, whether you want to look at it by like height and weight, age, playing level,
physically or
that.
Technically.
You have all of that there. You know how you stack up against your peers. And then take that a step further, in between, we know the expected results for that type of person over time. So it's like, we can obviously like track your progress over time through the test retest process. We can also see how your progress is stacking up against the expected, because we have so much data from all the time, and like so many different examples of programming iterations on like how to target specific things. And we could be halfway through a training block and we see, all right, like you're under where you're supposed to be at this point in time. We need to step in and iterate on maybe the drill selection. Maybe you need to change up the implements. Maybe you need to like switch up the bats you're using. Maybe, like I said, the drills need to change. Right. Maybe the environments you're hitting in need to change. Maybe it's something even simpler where it's like you could step in as like, all right, your bat speed progress isn't where it should be. Your exit velocity isn't where it's at. Let's see where you're at on the physical side, right? It's like, all right, maybe like your jumps are down. Jump height is down. All right, so you can go there. It's like, okay, are you actually lifting the way you should be? Are you treating your recovery the way you should be? Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. You're not eating well enough. Like, you're just burning more calories than you're bringing in.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're working your tail off, but
many different things.
That number on the scale isn't changing.
Yeah, and like that's honestly a problem a lot of guys have. Like, less so the working hard in the weight room. Like, I generally believe most baseball players can work a hell of a lot harder in the weight room. But like, a lot of times there's guys that really, really give a shit and work. I gotta phrase this the right way. Work too hard. You know, just like do way, way, way too much at all times because like they know what's wrong with their swing and they're searching, trying to fix it, but they're just cooking their workload. So it's like, it's really difficult to have any sort of progress over time that way. You're just training in a hole. If anything, a lot of times you're going to end up making yourself worse, regardless of how hard you're working.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point, right? It's just like come back to the car analogy again. Like your RPMs, like if they're not high enough, you're not going anywhere. To get too high, you're gonna be redlining, right? And being able to track everything. I mean, for hitters, it's so valuable to have our guys wearing the blast across the board and actually be able to monitor not just those retests, but like the whole time in between too, because you're not just, especially in baseball, like you're not just who you are on one swing or one day, even 1 week. Like, being able to track that whole process as well as the result is really awesome. Because say like the college summer's coming up. Usually guys will be in for about 3 months. That gives you 3 total assessments. You get your baseline test, train for 6 weeks, retest, train for another 6 weeks. That's a lot of progress that can happen in that window. Thinking about, okay, guys usually gain about like half a tick to a full mile an hour of expected bat speed per block. 1 to 2 miles an hour of expected bat speed coming off of your college season, plus all the ground you can cover in the training environment that you're getting access to on the specific side, is showing up to campus in the fall as a brand new guy.
Yeah, and then from there, you have all fall to continue building off that progress.
Right.
And then you'll have, best case, like 6 weeks in the winter to like really get after it again to set yourself up to be in the best position possible when your spring season starts.
Yeah, and it just comes back to that compounding again, right? And the advantage there of, I think, like coming in gym for those, because I think like training remotely, wherever you're at, super valuable. But being able to like actually come to Kent, Washington, and do those assessments, the retest and train, is the access to live at bats, getting those things in the launch pad. Like
also Scottsdale, Arizona, and Tampa, Florida.
Yeah,
not just Kent, Washington.
Yeah,
3 facilities now.
We're growing. But actually being able to see live arms at your competition level, maybe even slightly above your competition level, depending on who you are, in a training environment where you're not taking bus rides, going all around, but you're working on what you need to in a game-like environment.
Yeah,
because that game-like environment is so important. Yeah, that stress test is so valuable.
Live ABs, you get to stress test it. Every one of our facilities, we have eye pitch machines. They mix pitches. Like, you're going to go through progressions every day in your training where like it's like much more blocked, much more controlled, where you can really get into the weeds on some of the mechanical things. Progressive difficulty throughout the day as the environment gets more challenging, and then straight up stress test it throughout the week off of an eye pitch, and then live ABs as we get later into the off season. Like, there's just nothing like it anywhere else.